Yeah.
Okay,
Good
great.
morning. Good morning. This is Monday, June 7th already, and I'd like to welcome you. I have a very special Monday Live this morning. As you can tell, I'm not alone. I'm with Jennifer Silbert, and I'll be introducing her very, very shortly. But before I do, I just want to take a minute for let the people get on. It usually takes a couple of minutes. And for those of you who are getting on, I will see your name, and if I don't see your name, then say hello, and you can give the permission to Facebook to use the StreamYard to use your Facebook profile by clicking above. If you don't do that, then I will not be able to see your name when you comment and chat during the session, so you'll have to give us your name. So good morning. Of course, we're starting to get some people on, and Debbie is on, and Jennifer, you don't know this, but Debbie, I don't think she's ever missed one of my Monday morning lives, and she's 2 hours early. I forget, Debbie, are you in, I always get confused, Winnipeg or Edmonton? Edmonton, I think, let me know. So she is a very, very faithful viewer and listener, and I thank her greatly for that. Yeah, I really appreciate her. So for those of you who are not familiar with me yet, I get new people in the group every week, so I like to give just a little very short introduction. My name is Svieta Melchuk. I am in Montreal, Canada, so usually people get surprised when they find out that I'm actually not in the USA, but I'm Canadian. And I am a professional home stager, house flipper, decorator, and I've been doing this for about 15 years now. So I had quite a successful business in home staging and decorating and Airbnb decorating in Montreal, and I'm kind of winding it down and taking my business online in the last couple of years. So I work with clients who either want to sell their house and they need to update it and they need to stage it and they need to make sure that everything is tip-top shape to get the most money possible. Or I work with people who just want to beautify their surroundings, especially, these days it's becoming more and more important, and who want to get advice and tips. And like I always say, 2 eyes are better than one. Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, okay, outside of Red Deer. I forgot that. I'm sorry. So today I thought we're kind of getting out of my usual topics, which are always around real estate, home staging, home decor. But today I wanted to bring Jen on because I met Jennifer in one of our Facebook groups, and I thought that what she does is very, very amazing, and I'll let her tell you about it. But just a quick introduction, she is a confidence and well-being coach. And what she really does is help women learn how to navigate change in their life and challenges by identifying and overcoming the fears that they might have and that keep them stuck. And I thought that it would be very appropriate to ask Jennifer to come on and talk specifically about challenges and emotional fears and emotional attachments to our home, because when we're selling our home and we're downsizing or we're moving away, we all have our reasons of why we're doing it, but it becomes a very, very stressful process. So Jennifer, if you want to just introduce yourself quickly.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for having me because first off, I have admired your work so much, Svieta. I've been following your posts and the work that you do for your clients. I've been following the testimonies. Can you hear me okay, first off?
Yeah, I just made a little louder. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because if we get closer, then we've got this light, right? Which is wonderful because I feel like I have this heavenly light that's just shining down upon me today. That's a spotlight, but I'm trying to darken that up a little bit. But I've admired your work. I love interior design. I'm going to guess that many of the women in your group love this too. And that just goes to show that when it comes time to part with our home, that process would be that much more emotional because we've invested our time and our energy. Maybe we have developed new skills along the way where maybe we never thought we could pick out just the right paint colors for a room. And we finally mastered it in all these years we've lived in our home. Or maybe be able to match up the patterns in the drapes versus the patterns in the sofa and find just the right rug. So you know that you put a lot, it's not just the things, it's the investment of ourselves. I mean, we've poured ourselves into these homes, and our home is where our heart is, right? And
Well, yeah, usually it's really the more like I think it's less about decorating and more about your memories and your emotional attachments and things that might have happened in the house. Sometimes it's good things, sometimes unfortunately bad things. But for example, before we go into I ask you specific questions, I mentioned to you that I wanted to bring it up because I put a blog post a long time ago about specifically people downsizing, because that's the experience that I went through about 3.5 years ago. And I found it a very emotionally challenging experience. And I know there are some people in the group who are going through that process right now. And some of them DM me, and I see that. So one of the clients actually in the group, she said that I helped her a lot. Dealing with an emotional situation that she had, with a relative who passed away, because she read that blog post that I wrote, and that was about your why. And very briefly, what I really recommend to do is, if you're struggling, is to make a list. Sometimes just by writing things on paper, it clarifies your emotions. And I made a column, the pros and cons. And the reasons, what I wanted to get out of it were not just the financial reasons, but of course, by selling the house and getting that amount of money, that allowed me to move forward to something else. So I did downsize, but I always, whenever I got depressed or scared or emotional or sad, and I was quite sad and I cried quite a bit, when we sold the house and I had to leave it, is that I kept referring back to the positive side of my why list and all the positive reasons of why I was selling the house that were important to me and my husband, and the plans and the dreams that we had for the future that we were able to accomplish, or are hoping to be able to accomplish. One of them is traveling, which is hopefully coming back, because we took that action of selling the house where I brought up my kids. So let me ask you, the first question is, what do you do with, I know you boost women's confidence, you help them navigate emotional challenges. How can you relate that specifically to selling of a home?
Sure. Well, what I love to do, and in part as a coach, you bring your own personal experiences into your coaching. So every coach offers different perspectives, in part based on their own personal experience. And I have done a lot of letting go, a lot of releasing in my life. And I find that some of the principles and ideas that I'll share today are things that you could apply not just to the selling of your home, but also to any other areas of your life where you need to process emotions and let go. And it could be relationships, it could be just thoughts, like you said, reframing negative thoughts, catching the kinds of negative thoughts that you can learn how to reframe so you can let go of those. But in this context, what I can see is that this process of moving and selling your home is a little bit like the same dance that we do in other areas of our life, where when I say I help women find their brave, it's a combination of where do we need to step up and take control, and where do we need to step back and let go. And in each of those situations, it takes a lot of courage. And what we'll talk about here is obviously primarily that process of letting go. So I like to help you figure out, if you find yourself stuck or unhappy anywhere in this process, is what exactly is keeping you stuck? what's keeping you unhappy, maybe making you unhealthy, and help you explore that and move forward. So your ideas are fabulous, Sveta, but I think there's an opportunity for us to dig a little bit deeper, and that's what we'll do here in the next, 10, 15
Okay.
minutes or so.
So then help us understand, how would you describe the emotions that rise up for most people when you're selling the home? And what are the best ways to recognize those emotions and to deal with them?
Very good. Well, obviously, selling a home is bittersweet, right? Because if you're planning to upgrade to a bigger home, or maybe you're relocating closer to family, or maybe you're accepting a new job that you're looking forward to, you're moving on to something better and you're filled with a lot of excitement about the move. But in other cases, home selling can be very distressing and be even filled with a sense of loss and grief, because you might be focusing more on the loss. You might be downsizing. You might be grieving this change. Maybe you're uncertain about what your future has. And it might be difficult to see that right now.
Well, sometimes, that we were saying there are positive situations, but there are also negative situations that people have to deal with. And what I see a lot of, it's either people are empty nesters, so already they're dealing with that syndrome, which we're all familiar with, and that's not easy to on its own. But then when you do realize that maybe you don't need that size house and you have other aspirations, you are downsizing, so you have to deal with the unexpected possibly emotions of downsizing. Then we have people who are getting divorced. Then we're having people, especially seniors, who say older parents who need to be moved into the senior residence, or who unfortunately pass away. And that's where I always say that I'm like 3/4 psychologist, because this is where I help people a lot. It's not just in physical organizing of the house and moving things and updating it and staging it, but a lot of the time I really help people deal with the emotions. So I'd like you to talk on that.
Right. Well, if we wait, first off, I guess the starting point here is that we acknowledge that there are a lot of emotions that are tied up, not just in our home and the memories that we've made and what it represents, but also our belongings. And depending on how long you've lived in your home, you may have belongings you've accumulated for many, many years that are in the family photos, the memorabilia, the awards, things that represent accomplishments. Those are those really personal, sentimental items. Those are the hardest things to move beyond. I don't know about you, but oftentimes I make the best plans to declutter these items that I'll store in boxes, right? And then I go in and say, okay, I've got to figure out what's going to stay. And then I end up staying there for hours while I'm revisiting my experiences from the past. And if I'm not able to process the emotions that are a part of these items, if I'm not able to let go of my past, if I'm going to linger in the past, this process is going to be that much more difficult. So what I would suggest would be a way to make the process of moving and dealing with the emotional landscape a bit easier is a couple things. If I could go into some ideas, maybe for how we can make that a little bit easier. So in addition to the items we can see when it's time to downsize and declutter, we're going through them and we see having a hard time knowing whether this stays or this goes. There is probably a place for being proactive and going through this process of dealing with those emotions before you even think about selling a house. So tip number one would be, if you're even thinking about selling a house, then take the time to process your emotions related to your belongings first, because
what do you mean? Can you clarify, like be more specific? So let's say some people are put in a situation where they have to sell their home very quickly.
Right.
But if not, if you do have a certain amount of time, like you said, somebody starts thinking about it, maybe it's going to take them a few months before they actually decide to put the house on the market.
Right.
How do they, when you say process your emotions, what does that mean?
So one of the reasons it's very hard to let go of the sentimental items is because they're a part of our past. They might be manifestations of dreams that we had for ourselves or for our kids, and maybe those dreams didn't come true. And so we look at these items and it brings up a sense of loss or guilt or maybe even shame, but we've never processed it. We've just hung on to those items. And now when you're thinking about moving and all of a sudden you take these things, if you can't process those emotions in advance, what are you going to do with those items? What do you think we normally do? We're going to throw them in a box and we're going to take them with us and we're going to keep prolonging the process of letting go. And that's really what a lot of this is recognizing that if we can focus more, like you said, on your why, what's ahead of you? What is the promising joy? It's just really about the joy. Is this bringing you joy or is this keeping you stuck in the past somewhere? And
so somebody's trying to declutter, and I know it's a big issue. Okay, I don't want us to get off track, but I think if we're going to give some, I'd like our viewers to get some like real tangible kind of tips that they can apply. So if somebody knows that they've been in the house for 20, 25, 30 years, they know they have a lot of decluttering to do, and that's an issue that's very relevant to my clients, to this group. What do you recommend? Where do they start? Like, what should they do? Should they go about this whole process?
Well, again, the first key point is that where you can be proactive and start this process as early as possible, then do it, because you're offering your clients a wonderful service. But if I'm the client, if I'm the one selling my home, I feel I'm the one that has this emotional attachment. And it's not just about this step right now of moving on to your next home. It's about processing emotions that you're going to carry with you to your next place. So if you have the advantage and you can, I would recommend starting that process early. So just make the time, be intentional about setting aside maybe 30 minutes at a time and set a timer. Don't go any longer than that, because if you go longer than that, you can go down a rabbit hole and you can get stuck in the past and you're not moving forward. So set a timer, 30 minutes, do as much as you can, and then move on. But if time is short and it's time for you to sell your house, first of all, I'm sure you're familiar with Marie Kondo. You could see this, her little book of the life-changing magic of tidying up.
Believe it or not, I have never read her books.
So I'm
really not into it.
We're not going to go down that rabbit hole. And I have a list of about 9 different decluttering methods that someone could choose for decluttering if we're in that zone. But if we're looking at finding the joy, really, this is about finding the joy in the things that you have and going through this process. Okay. So if it's time for you to move and you need to deal with these emotions, then here's what I would recommend. Number 1, we're going to start with 3 boxes and 3 questions. Okay. You might think the questions are related to the boxes. Okay. We got 1 box for the things we're going to keep. We got 1 box for the things that we're going to get rid of. And then we've got that last box of either I don't know or I'm going to donate this. But I want you to ask yourself 3 questions, and here's where the tangible support can be. All right. Number 1 question is, what is important about this item? I mean, really sit on that and ask yourself, why do I have this? You might be surprised with the answer. You might not remember why you have it, and you've just been lugging it around and hanging on to it. So that's a no-brainer. Then you can get rid of that very easily. Okay. But you might be keeping it because you think you should. because it was something that was passed on to you, which happens right when we settle the estates for our parents, or this is our grandmom's. It's an heirloom piece. Okay. Are you really hanging on to it because you want it and it brings you joy? Or are you keeping it because you feel guilty if you unload it? Then that goes in that third box. Or the second one, if you know for sure what the answer is, let's get rid of it. Don't hang on to it if it's been sitting in your attic in a box for the past 2 years. It's gone. It's gone. You need to emotionally detach. And that's this process, not just unemotionally, but lovingly. So this process of letting go, think about this. Process the emotions and maybe have a little ceremony. You can have a little ceremony for
What kind of a ceremony?
Yeah, you can, maybe you want to get the family together. Maybe it's just you. You can light a candle. You could sit and you have a little blessing ceremony for the things that you're troubled with about letting go. And you know what? You can thank them. Thank them for the blessing they have been in your life. And you will be amazed at the positive energy that not only you'll walk away with, but you will leave that with that item. So the next person who has possession of your item will be blessed. And that gratitude will override whatever fear you have about letting go. Okay, so then two more questions. 2, does this item bring joy to my life? If it doesn't, get rid of it. And that's where that's the Japanese art of decluttering, is focusing on what brings you joy.
So, I like that.
All right. So if it brings you, I help the joy. I help women find their joy. And this is one of it. Touch it, feel it, reflect on it. If it doesn't really bring you joy, it's out of here. Out. Okay. Okay. Number 3, if you keep it, if you choose to keep this item, where are you going to put it when you move? If you're planning on just putting it in a storage bin until you decide what to do with it, it's out of here. Because this is the time for you to process now. Otherwise, you're just prolonging the process.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, I always recommend, I must be a very unemotional person because I have not a lot of trouble getting rid of things. I try to, always live very minimalistic lifestyle. And I always tell my husband, if we pick something up once, we either decide where it's going to go right now or it's going in the garbage. Like, we're not moving items for the sake of moving items around the house. And I also tell people that, unfortunately, nobody likes to declutter. We all know that. It's not a fun process. But if you don't do it before you move, it's going to be so much harder for you and more expensive in terms of the quantity of stuff. And it's just stuff that you're carrying around and that you're going to have to store somewhere else. So you absolutely, my advice is, which is exactly what you're saying, start as early as possible and be methodical. Maybe do one room at a time and then do a certain limited amount of time, like you said, maybe 30 minutes at a time, and kind of don't prolong it. Just look at it and brings you joy. I absolutely love that concept. I think it's super important for people to remember that, yes, if it doesn't bring you joy to look at it, then you probably don't need it in your life. Very, very nice. Okay. And so can you just summarize the 3 questions again very quickly?
Yes. So the first question is, let me go to my notes. The first question is, what is important about this item?
Yes.
Okay. So reflect on that. Why do you have it? Why is it significant to you? Number 2, does this item bring joy into your life? Okay. And number 3, if I take this item with me, where will I put it? Will I have room for it? Where will I display it? If it deserves a place of honor, do I have a place of honor? Is my place too small? I'm not going to be able to fit this in here. And those will be 3 great criteria for you to vet how you process the decluttering process. One last thing, though, just to very quickly summarize the emotional part. It is a place of Zen when we reach a place in our life when we can emotionally detach from items and just enjoy the time we have with them and be okay with letting them go. But when we have a hard time, look at it as a cue for you to dig deeper at some time in the future, because we carry with us childhood wounds. It might be of abandonment or neglect or a lack of love. And these items may very well have been filling a hole for us that we haven't really taken time to process. And that's what's making it hard to let it go. So, where you make time, whether it's after you move or during the process, be compassionate with yourself and be accepting of the fact that there's this little girl inside that maybe just hasn't quite processed.
So I guess that is how you help women cope with major changes in their life, whatever those changes might be, including letting go of a home maybe where they brought their kids up. Is that's how you help people?
That's a major part of what seems to resonate the most. I get women well into their 60s and 70s who are carrying around these wounds, and they're very accomplished and productive, but yet they struggle with this emotional landscape. And then when you add this trigger of selling a home, it just triggers all this flood of emotions, and it makes it that much more hard on you. But it's reaching that place of just compassion for yourself. Do your best through the process. Use these vetting questions. Look forward to the future and focus on the positive. And
I think that's really very important message. Is whichever coping mechanism you have, and I do want for you to give people, your coordinates and how they can reach you and how they can be part of your world, because maybe somebody who has a really hard time and does need some extra emotional support, they can talk to you privately and see how you can help them. But for others, I think the very important message here from Jen is that, start early, be organized, and go through the questions that she suggested, and only keep the minimal amount of things that bring you joy. And the message from me is have your why list right next to your face sometime, maybe put it on the fridge or wherever place it's going to be visible. So whenever you are having doubts or fears or feeling sad, you can refer back to the positive aspects of what the new life is going to bring you. Why are you selling? Is it to travel more? Is it because your kids are going to go to college? Maybe you're moving closer to your grandchildren and you'll be able to see them. So everybody has to find, at least 3 or 4 or 5 positive things about the new change coming, and keep looking at it every day if you have to. So this way it will be much easier for you to deal with the emotional aspects of selling your home. And what did you want to say, Jen? I can see you want to say something.
I'm in agreement with all of this. It's an opportunity to be loving with ourselves and not try to rush the process and feel that we have to force an emotion that we're just not ready for. From a pragmatic standpoint, we need to move on. The earlier we do this, the better. I invite you to maybe reach out if you want to put something in the comments.
Well, first of all, Jennifer is a member of this group, so you can just type her name in, and Jennifer Silbert, and you will get her coordinates, and you can connect with her on Messenger privately. You can also comment in under this live, and Jennifer or I will see the comments and will respond. Jennifer also runs a community for women who need, it's all defined by sunflowers. And I, in her honor, wore my yellow shirt today, which is the only yellow item that I own. So Jennifer, as we were talking, saying at the beginning, for those of you who might have missed it, her official title is Confidence and Wellness Coach, which I really, really like. Confidence and Wellbeing Coach. I love that title. And also the key takeaway that I want everybody to have is that if you know your why and you keep going to it and you look at Jennifer's tips and questions to ask yourself about the emotional detachment to material things, then it can really help you feel much better, less overwhelmed with the whole process, and keep looking forward and being positive to your new life. Now, just very briefly before we end, I just want to let you know that for those of you who don't know, I am a coach as well. I work specifically with savvy home sellers who need to update, who need help, who are feeling overwhelmed, who know that their house needs to be updated, staged, and looking beautiful for its best sale ever. So you can connect with me. We can chat privately at no cost to you, of course, to see how we can work together. And then based on that, I help you decide on a specific program or an online consultation. It could be something very short. It could be something that's a few sessions together. But basically, we make sure that your house is at a tip-top shape for sales so you can sell it quickly, make the most money possible, and move on with your next dream. So that concludes our sessions. Unless anybody who is watching, if any of you have any questions at this time for me or Jennifer, please put them in the comments right now. We can see them in the chat. And if not, then we will conclude right here. But you're welcome to put your comments in the chat box, in the comments below, and Jennifer and I will be very happy to answer them. So I will see you guys. If you need to talk to me privately, please DM me at my personal Sveta Melchuk, and I'll be very happy to get you in touch with Jennifer. We'll put your Facebook group coordinates in the comments as well. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your advice.
Thanks, hon.
Bye.